Okay. How do we start this? Maybe
Give it
how
to
we
me.
met? How do I know you? How do we know you?
Yes, those are all great stories.
They are good stories.
We're
Mhm.
gonna have to go lifetimes back to
Oh.
answer that question.
There's
Oh.
no doubt this has happened before in other forms.
Mhm.
That's for sure.
Oh, man. Yeah, so, well, Patrick and I were both part of an event, God, was that 2 years ago? 3 years ago?
2 years ago.
2 years ago?
I have no idea what you're talking
It
about.
was, the Counterculture Club,
Is that
alcohol
where
f
we met him?
Yeah, first time.
Really?
I did.
Were you just like strolling around in there?
I was strolling around, fascinated about a social event
Mhm.
That had no
that
alcohol.
had no alcohol and people were having a good time.
Mm,
Wow.
big wow.
What do you think? I know you've probably done a lot of deep thinking, or I would assume that you have around what it is about our culture or society or the human condition in general that this point in our evolution we have to have places like that have alcohol in order to connect, or why do you think that that's so prevalent in our society today?
And I've listened to people talk about alcohol and it being we call it spirit.
Mhm.
If it is a spirit, what is the spirit of alcohol, and why is it that so many people are choosing to ingest it? And I have wondered if in some way we become possessed, because in my office, when I hear people in conflict and like really traumatic experiences that happen in their lives, whether it was something that was done to them or something they did to someone else, almost all the time it involves alcohol. So now I'm collecting data, as a doctor of leadership, human leadership, which is the degree that I have, a doctor in organizational leadership and strategic change. I've gone on a deep dive into what provokes people to do what they do and why do they behave the way they behave and what makes an effective leader and how we lead. And so I wonder, what is it that has us so connected to this substance? And what was the motivation behind creating it? What's the intention behind who is creating it? And why is it so prevalent in our lives right now? When I go to the supermarket, I cannot buy weed at the supermarket, but I can buy half the supermarket is alcohol when you walk in. It's literally there next to the fruit. And I'm just curious, why is it there? Why is it legal? Why does it seem to cause so much havoc in our physical lives and interrelational lives? And yet we keep drinking it. What is that? And I wonder if it's in some way, it serves to mask the true relationship we have with our own source energy because we're afraid of it.
So let's expand there because we can talk about alcohol, we can talk about food, we can talk about sex, we can talk about all the things that are effective masks for what you just said, because that's really at the core of the problem. And I do think there is an aspect of kind of perpetuation, within our society that is just riddled with alcohol that creates that whole kind of once over and generational where, it's like, why does alcohol work well for me? Why do I have the personality that alcohol works so well for me? Well, I was raised by someone who was an alcoholic and on and on and on. And whether they consumed it or not, it's you dig into kind of the mentality of the man and masculinity and healthy, communication and all those things. And it's like, well, why is it so why are it's almost as if we're born with it lacking. And so, to answer or to dive into your question is why are we this way? Why do we feel the need, to find this brotherhood? Why are we lacking so much? That's really where I want to focus. Is
Mm,
what's the problem? Like it's not alcohol's not causing this.
right.
It's cultural, it's societal, it's generational, it's hereditary. It's a lot of things going on as a result of many, many years of evolution, that men are now in this place where we're empty, where we can't find true, genuine connection. We're scared of it. We're scared of pain. We're scared of sadness. We're scared of anger. And so we use these things like alcohol and the other list I provided to mask that discomfort. Where is that discomfort from?
Well, it sounds like we have generations of lost humans. And then we could ask, well, how did we get so lost? Maybe going back to what's the agenda for creating the alcohol? What's the agenda for creating this culture where we're told that we have to work long hours and sit at desks and cubicles and make a lot of money and buy things, and yet this continues to be reported to me that it's not sparking joy in men's lives. Sitting in a corporate office and making a lot of money and buying stuff is not sparking joy. And so where did the joy go? And if I just look at the history books, well, I wonder if, because I don't know, I don't have the exact answer. I wasn't there. Maybe we were there in the past life.
Mm,
And so I often
likely.
wonder if if there is something called source energy or divine universal consciousness, what is it? And have we lost connection to that because we've been manipulated in some way? And so I'm not sure what the agenda is or where that came from. All I know is if in fact I'm not experiencing joy, then there's this desire to figure out how to get it back. And so that's why I see in this men's movement, which has been going on for several decades now in America, learning about sacred wisdom traditions and our ancestral lines. Why are more men talking about that? Why do you see more men engaging in sacred, what I would consider rites of passage rituals, like gathering around a fire and playing drums and sweat lodges and exploration with plant medicine? There's clearly a desire that men have to explore something about themselves, and they're trying to tap into it in these ways that I think our ancestors were very much connected to. And so, of course, as I sit back, I've wondered, well, maybe is this cyclical that we're just coming back around and our ancestors were there? And now we're having this mass awakening of, wow, I'm really not happy sitting in this cubicle, drinking every night, making a lot of money. I'm really miserable. I want to connect to something else. What is that? And how do I get it? And so maybe we've been trying to the alcohol, the sex, the drugs, and now we're shifting our focus to something else. And everyone's looking for it. And I think it is these sacred wisdom traditions that our ancestors were connected to in some way and practicing.
So, quick list. You do some yoga, you eat healthy, some sharing sessions, some one-on-one stuff, some group stuff, some dance, some cold plunge,
S-
some go ahead. What
Yes,
else?
it changes
Yep.
each one. And we speak about alignment. So the education piece is also experiential in that we're teaching them, like Asher, how to move in your body, how to sit in your body, how to stand in your body, how to just organically create movements for yourself. And I'll reference a man who said, I didn't know that I could experience being in my body in this way. I feel cheated. I didn't know that I've gone my entire life and I never knew that I could feel what I'm feeling in my body and move in my body in this way before. That's beautiful.
Mhm. Let's give our listeners a little more logistical kind of when are your retreats? I know there's 2 a year, but give us a time of year, events that people can kind of dip their toe in, reach out to you, where to reach out, those things.
I think this is a great opportunity to emphasize that having listened to a lot of messaging that men are receiving now as it relates to, and I'm again, perpetual student of the game, played college football, and as one brother in the retreat told me, Brian, I'm in basic training. Depending on your age, you might be at halftime. which is probably what many of us coming to the retreats are at, or maybe you're in the second half. There's a lot of talk about masculine and feminine energy, or masculinity and femininity. And we really don't use that language in the retreats. It's about productive energy or productivity and potential energy. We're not even saying that these are synonymous. Productive energy is masculine and energy, and potential energy is feminine. It's really just about figuring out how to show up in the world and what are you producing? What are you doing? And then, or what are you creating? And then what's the potential out there for something else? What is that? The world is, I mean, look at where we live. It's open, it's wide open. So, in this dance between being productive and productive energy and potential energy, because a lot of men are talking about being more masculine and it's often gender associated. So, associated with male or female. And we don't get caught in that binary way of looking at life, because people who've come to our retreats, they identify as men, and we've had trans men attend our retreats. We've had men from different sexual orientations, all different walks of life. That's why I want to be clear that this is for any human being who does, it's gender specific in the sense that they identify as a man. And we are trying to liberate ourselves from very specific, rigid boundaries around how we communicate as it relates to being a man and a woman, or even moving away from it having to be man or woman. What is it like to be fucking human? What is that like? Because liberating ourselves from these shackles of it has to be this or that is what a lot of men are wrestling with. Some are even asking, what the hell does it mean to be a man? What is that? What is a man? So these retreats are twice a year. The next one is November 1st through the 3rd, 2024. The site is live. It's my site, and there's a link to that page on my site, brianstrahine.com.
We'll provide that as well.
Yes. And then within those retreats, there's obviously the invitation to join one of the small groups. And then throughout the year, we're always creating, because we see the potential to create opportunities to also produce something. So, like yesterday, 15 men gathered, and women as well, to sit in a tub of ice for 3 minutes at a time. And then we yell and scream and have a good time, which is what happened yesterday. So, there's a lot of creating going on within the time between the two retreats. But at the core of this is inviting men to connect with one other man in life so that he doesn't have to feel alone, and that he can lean in on this man. Some are calling it accountability partners. I'm just calling it a friend, a true friend. And I love telling stories if you haven't noticed already. I was walking out of the Dowd Y, our downtown Y, the other day, and a man was wearing looked like an old school t-shirt, and it looked like it had seen a few days. And so I stopped and asked him about it, and he proceeds to tell me this whole story about how his dad went to school at the Dowd when it was a school. I didn't know it was a school.
Mm-hmm.
And he proceeds to tell me about, and I didn't provoke him to tell me any of this whole story about his dad and his dad's best friend, and how his dad lived across the tracks and would walk to this side of the town to go to this school because there was this connection he had with this other little boy. And that this man telling the story about his dad, on his dad's deathbed, who was the person that was holding his hand and rubbing his hand? It was this friend. And so I think this is what every man craves,
Hmm.
to know that no matter what, that your friend is going to be there to rub your hand on your deathbed, not giving a fuck about how much money you've made or what your title is or what car you're driving, which is what Instagram is telling men they need to have. Where's your fucking friend that's going to hold your hand on your deathbed? And that's what men's sacred liberation is.
I think that's a perfect way to put a period on it.
Mhm.
Brian Strahine, thank you.
Thank you.